I walked into the lobby of the W Hotel in downtown Chicago, holding a bottle of bourbon I'd spent 2 months tracking down. A limited run, Willet pot, still reserve, from a distillery in Kentucky that didn't even ship outside the state. It was supposed to be a celebration gift. My wife Belle had landed a massive new client for Iron Grid, and the company was hosting some black tie gala to honor the leadership team. She'd told me to dress sharp and be there by 8, so I did. I wore the suit she liked, charcoal gray, pressed shirt, no tie. I even shaved. The ballroom doors were wide open when I got upstairs. Light bouncing off glass, laughter already rolling through the crowd. Belle was standing front and center under the chandelier, beaming. And right in front of her, on one knee, was her boss, Damon Coulter. The guy was slick as hell, Silicon Valley haircut, pocket square, folded like origami, voice full of fake charm. He held a mic and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "So, Belle, will you leave your broke, washed-up husband and come build an empire with me?" Laughter. Actual laughter. She smiled, not nervous, not caught off guard, just smug. Then she said, "Yes," just like that. No pause. No apology. I stood there in the doorway like an idiot, bottle still in hand. For half a second, I wondered if it was some kind of joke, a pitch, a skit. But the way she touched his shoulder and kissed his cheek after, no, that was real. I didn't say a word, didn't break the bottle, didn't yell. I just turned around and walked out the way I came. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I took the red line home, bourbon in my lap, stomach twisted so tight I thought I might throw up. The train was almost empty, just me, one drunk guy muttering to himself, and a couple kids in hoodies blasting music through a cracked phone. When I got back to my place, our place, technically, but she hadn't really stayed there in months, I walked straight to the desk, opened my laptop, and logged into the back end. I still owned 64% of Iron Grid Solutions. The patent, mine, the original code base, built in my garage, the funding, my dad's life savings. So I pulled everything, revoked access, froze transfers, locked down root credentials. By the time I walked into the kitchen, my phone had 27 missed calls, and someone was already banging on my door. The banging at the door didn't stop. I ignored it, walked straight past the hallway, past the noise, into the bedroom where my suit was laid out on the bed, like I was still pretending tonight would end with a toast instead of a bloodletting. I unzipped the garment bag and started changing. Shirt first, then pants. My tie was already knotted and hanging on the closet door like it always was when I needed to suit up fast. That's when I saw her iPad sitting on the dresser, still plugged in. The screen lit up with a notification from messages. Damon, proposal will happen during Caleb's keynote. His reaction justifies the leadership restructuring. I froze. I picked up the iPad. The screen was already unlocked. She must have left it open while getting ready. There it was, a whole thread between them. Dozens of messages. They'd been planning it for weeks. Belle, if he storms off or blows up, we can move the vote to Friday. Use it to prove instability. Damon, perfect. I'll prime the board with a follow-up deck tonight. Frame it around vision versus liability. Liability. That's what I was now. A name on paper that held back their ambitions. Not a husband, not a founder, not even a person with a seat at the table. Just a roadblock. Damon, his 64% stake is holding us back. Belle, let him crash out. The company's grown beyond his code. Damon, he's not the product. You are. I gripped the edge of the dresser, knuckles tight. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. All the moments we'd built Iron Grid together. Late nights writing launch copy while I debugged the back end, early investor calls from our living room, press events where she said we instead of I. All of it was just a pitch, a brand, a placeholder until the narrative could shift, until I could be erased. My eyes dropped to the watch she'd left on the nightstand. The vintage Rolex I'd tracked down for our 5th anniversary, 1987. Same year she was born. She'd cried when I gave it to her. Now it sat next to her hair ties and perfume like it meant nothing. I grabbed it and stared into the mirror. My tie was crooked. My shirt cuffs were wrinkled. I looked calm, like someone who could still walk into a gala and smile for cameras. But my hands were locked around the counter like I was holding on to the last piece of something real. I checked the messages again, scrolled up farther, saw receipts, private meetings with Damon at his firm's penthouse, slide decks marked confidential, one titled The Next Era, Iron Grid Without the Anchor. The anchor was me, Brielle. He won't see it coming. He's too focused on the product. Damon. Exactly. That's the difference between builders and leaders. I should have felt anger, rage, something explosive, but I didn't. What I felt was cold, like a wire had been cut and everything just went quiet inside me. I set the iPad down gently on the bed, walked into the bathroom, adjusted my tie, washed my hands like I could rinse the betrayal off my skin. Then I opened my drawer, took out the small USB I always kept hidden behind my old tax returns, and plugged it into my laptop. All my notes, my original code versions, my version control logs, every timestamp, every update, every single thing that proved Iron Grid didn't just come from me, it was me. I backed it all up. Triple copy, external drive, secure cloud, offline folder. Then I opened the closet and pulled down the small fireproof lockbox I hadn't touched in years. The real paperwork was next, the part they couldn't delete from a Slack channel or overwrite with a new logo. I sat cross-legged on the living room floor with the fireproof safe open beside me, the cold metal digging into my knee. That safe hadn't seen daylight since we moved into this apartment, same one we celebrated in when Iron Grid hit its first $100,000, back when Brielle still wore my college sweatshirt and actually cared about the back-end code. The papers inside were yellowed at the edges from time, but the ink was bold and sharp. I pulled them out one by one. The original partnership agreement, the tech ownership contract, the first patent filings with my name stamped in bold, Caleb Thomas Weston. We signed most of these documents in my dad's garage, right after he handed me a check for $60,000. That was everything he'd saved from 4 decades working parts counters and factory lines at a Ford dealership in Toledo. Said he didn't want to die with that money sitting in a bank. I still remember his hands shaking when I signed the first grant application. His pen had leaked a little ink on the margin, and he apologized like it ruined the whole thing. It didn't. It just made it real. I spread everything out across the kitchen table. Patent certs, bank transfer receipts, early grant approvals, my application to the NIH Accelerator program, all in my name, my handwriting, my vision. Brielle had been good at what she did, pitching, spinning, smiling for cameras. But she never touched the code, never once opened a GitHub repo. She called it the Nerd Cave and laughed every time she saw my dual monitors glowing in the dark. And yet, somehow, Damon convinced her that she was the face and the foundation, that I was the dead weight dragging the company down. I found the earliest sketch of the AI workflow, drawn on the back of a takeout menu from a ramen place we used to hit on Friday nights. It had my notes in red Sharpie and a greasy thumbprint from pork broth. I smiled for half a second before it faded. I kept digging. Tax records from the first year, all under my name. The IRS didn't even recognize Brielle as a co-owner until we filed the LLC reorg papers 3 years in. And even then, her title was Head of Communications. Never founder, never technical partner. There were NDAs from early vendors. Dev contracts I wrote myself when we were bootstrapping and broke. Every last one pointed back to me. And that's the thing about Damon. He understood equity, but he didn't understand sweat. He didn't get that building something means locking yourself in a room while your friends are out drinking, that it means chasing every damn grant and pitch meeting until someone says yes. He just saw numbers on a cap table and figured he could reshuffle them. I pulled out the thickest folder, the one labeled Structure. Inside, full breakdown of the platform architecture, dev cycles, original schema, and a breakdown of contributor percentages from our early contractor hires. Brielle's name wasn't on a single line. I stacked everything in a neat pile, laid it right in the center of the table, and took a picture with the date showing on my phone. I left the window, sat back down at my desk, and opened the back end I built by hand before anyone even knew what Iron Grid was. First step, revoke Damon's credentials. Not just his email or Slack access, full removal from the live product environment. His permissions were inherited from a temporary admin patch I'd granted months ago, back when I still believed Brielle was keeping him in check. Dumb move. Fixed now. Gone. Then I hit the finance stack. froze every executive card tied to the company account. No Uber charges, no catered lunches, no five-star hotel rooms for client retention. If it had Damon or Brielle's name on it, it went dead. Next, cloud control. AWS, GCP, Okta, locked down and rerouted. Admin tokens invalidated. MFA rekeyed. All passwords reset. Every new user invite Damon sent in the past 60 days, revoked. His whole dev team, disabled. I checked the scheduler. Overnight scripts were still running. Invoice processing, calendar sync, API events. I started pausing them one by one. Within an hour, contracts stopped triggering. Meetings vanished from shared calendars. Email threads started bouncing. Every integration they depended on got pulled out from under them. The product stayed live, but with limited functionality, enough to show a maintenance banner, but not enough for anyone to actually work. I didn't need to crash the system to make a point. I just needed to pull enough wires to watch them scramble. Brielle's calendar lit up like a slot machine. Pings and notifications flooding in as meetings disappeared, reminders failed, and synced servers stopped calling home. Around 3:40 a.m., I called our CTO. He answered on the second ring. "You up? Been watching the logs," I said. "Everything okay?" "No, it's beautiful." He was one of the few loyal. Never liked Damon, and never trusted Brielle once she started running comms like it was a political campaign. I trusted him with what came next. "Anything they touched," I said, "isolate and audit. Access logs, change histories, permissions trails. I want it airtight." "You got it." Vendors started calling around 4, confused, annoyed. Some of them polite, some of them already threatening to escalate. I didn't sugarcoat it. "There's been a leadership restructuring," I said. "All current agreements are under review. If Damon or Brielle signed it, it's frozen." One vendor paused. "So, who's in charge now?" I let the silence stretch for a beat. "I am." By 5 a.m., I was eating dry cereal out of the box, watching contract bots spin their wheels, trying to hit endpoints that no longer existed. By 6, I got word from our counsel that Damon's firm was getting bombarded with emails from investors asking why logins weren't working and why their dashboards were showing blank. No product, no access, no plan. I'd built the system, every API, every logic tree, every recovery layer. And now, one by one, I was switching it all back to manual. No chaos, just precision. Let them see what it feels like to steal something they don't know how to run. The knock came the next evening, just after 9 p.m. I didn't check the peephole. I didn't need to. Only one person would knock like that. Soft, spaced out, like the drama hadn't already hit DEFCON 1. I opened the door. Brielle stood there like she'd just walked off the gala stage, still in that navy dress with the slit up the side, heels in one hand, clutch in the other. Her makeup was smudged, not from tears, but from wear. She didn't look sad, just annoyed that she had to show up at all. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside, didn't say a word. She walked in like nothing had happened, like we were still partners, like she hadn't tried to publicly knife me in the back in front of half our investor pool. "I figured you'd overreact," she said, settling into the arm of the couch. "But I didn't think you'd burn the whole place down." She crossed her legs, set the clutch on the coffee table like she owned the room. "It was strategy, Caleb. That's all. Optics. Damon pitched the idea and I walked to the kitchen, grabbed the manila envelope off the counter, and held it out. She looked at it like it might explode. "What's this?" I didn't answer, just waited. She took it, slid out the documents. Silence. Her eyes moved line by line. Pages rustled under her fingers, slower with each flip. She hit the non-compete clause and stiffened. Then the misappropriation breakdown. At $1.2 million in unauthorized funds rerouted to her personal account over the last 18 months. "This is insane," she said finally. "You can't be serious." I didn't blink. The resignation was in there, along with a full forfeiture of all shares. No severance, no golden parachute, just a clean exit and a ban from any involvement in Iron Grid or related ventures for the next 5 years. I pointed to the pen on the table. "Either sign it now," I said, "or wait until the lawsuits land and your inbox collapses." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her, like she thought I'd be angry, emotional, begging her to explain. She still didn't get it. This company, she started, was mine, I cut in, before you ever believed in it, before you knew what AI stood for. You wore the face, Belle. I built the bones. She didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't scream. She just sat there, breathing through her nose, like a kid who finally realized the test was real and she didn't study. Slowly, silently, she picked up the pen, signed page 1, initialed page 2, flipped, signed again. When she was done, she slid the papers back in the envelope and set it on the table like it weighed 100 pounds. I gave everything to this company, she said, voice quieter now. I made it look like something. You made it look clean, I said. I made it work. She opened her mouth, maybe to defend herself, maybe to argue, but nothing came out. She just stood, grabbed her heels, walked to the door. She stopped in the doorway. Damon's going to fight this. He's already losing, I said. She didn't say goodbye. She just left. One day later, I walked into the Iron Grid boardroom for the first time in 6 months. Same chairs, same skyline view, same self-important air that always clung to the glass box like cologne. Damon was already there, leaning back like he had a seat for life. Navy suit, no tie, one ankle resting on his knee like he was settling in for a pitch. He smiled when he saw me. Caleb, thought you'd be taking time off after your little tantrum. I didn't answer, just slid the manila envelope onto the table, the one with Brielle's signature on every page. Then I opened my laptop and connected to the main screen. I kept it simple. 3 folders. 1. Shareholder withdrawal. 2. Contract breaches. 3. Gala footage. Time-stamped. I opened the video first. No intro, just full screen. Damon, mic in hand, asking my wife to cut the dead weight. Laughter. Her, yes. Crowd reaction. Everything. When the video ended, no one said a word. Then I opened the share log and showed the withdrawal. I moved my 64% into a protected personal trust. Still mine, just out of their hands. I clicked into the contract breach folder. Email chains, access logs, deleted audit trails. Brielle's name on every edit. Damon's on every authorization. Finally, I spoke. This is coercion. This is fraud. This is breach of shareholder agreement, breach of fiduciary duty, breach of your own damn ethics clause. Damon shifted in his seat, trying to keep the smirk, but it was cracking at the edges. You're making this emotional, he said. Let's not confuse bruised ego with, I built the product, I snapped, stepping forward. I own the code. I hold the patents. You tried to erase me, but you can't erase foundation. And you damn sure can't steal something you don't understand. The board chair, a guy named Randolph who once told me I had engineer eyes, leaned in. So, what do you want, Caleb? Simple, I said. Remove them, both. Effective immediately. You have everything you need right here. The vote wasn't even close. 7-1. Brielle, removed from all official roles, stripped of equity rights, barred from speaking on behalf of the company. Damon, expelled as an external advisor and flagged for regulatory investigation. He stood up like it mattered. This'll tank the stock. You're killing momentum. I looked him dead in the face. The stock ran on what I built. You just sold the packaging. He left without shaking hands. Once the room cleared, Randolph turned back to me. The board would support your return, if that's what you're after. CEO, CTO, your pick. I shook my head. I've got other plans. He nodded, but he looked disappointed. Probably thought he was giving me something I'd been begging for. I left with the only thing that mattered. Control. 9 months later, I was living in a converted loft in southeast Portland. Exposed brick, high ceilings, decent light when the clouds didn't smother it. Nothing fancy, just functional. My desk sat under the window, cluttered with hardware parts, 3 notebooks full of scribbles, and a Linux box I was gutting and rebuilding for fun. No suits, no board calls. No Brielle spinning up buzzwords to make my code sound more expensive than it was. Just air, just time, just clean work. The espresso machine on my kitchen counter cost $200, and it made better coffee than anything I ever got at the Iron Grid office. Even after we installed that ridiculous bean-to-cup monster that needed weekly maintenance. I was working with a few grad students from Oregon State. Smart kids. One was building a neural layer to simulate decision trees in unstructured medical data. Another was teaching herself to optimize LLM token routing through dynamic throttling. Real stuff. No deck polish. No fake TED Talk energy. We met twice a week in my space, spread out on my floor with laptops and trail mix, just solving problems. No managers, no deadlines. Just build and test. It felt like breathing for the first time in years. I'd backed a small AI startup too, run by a 25-year-old named James from Akron. Kid reminded me of myself back when I was pitching my dad in that garage with nothing but a whiteboard and a busted Dell. James had the same look, not hungry for headlines, just obsessed with getting it right. I wired him the seed money without a pitch deck. Told him, don't worry about investors, worry about the math. He did. Meanwhile, Belle was back in Michigan, teaching branding strategy at a community college that didn't even have a football team. I found out through LinkedIn. Her page said, former executive, but Iron Grid was scrubbed from the experience section. Damon's fund got dropped by their biggest client 6 weeks after the board vote. SEC flagged him on a pending audit. Investors pulled back. His name stopped showing up in Crunchbase alerts. I never made a call, never said a word. I just let the numbers play. You don't have to burn people to beat them. Just take your hands off the wheel and let gravity do what it does. I spent most mornings walking to a local bakery down the block. Didn't even wear a watch anymore. No one cared who I was. No one wanted a pitch or a signature. Every now and then, I'd sketch out new ideas. Open source stuff, clean frameworks, reusable blocks for developers who didn't have $5 million in venture cash, but still wanted to build something real. I called it bare metal. No fluff, no bloat, just performance. Some nights, I'd get emails from Iron Grid engineers who'd stuck around. Nothing official, just quiet thank yous. One guy said, the system's still running on your framework. They haven't touched it. Didn't surprise me. I never built it to be flashy. I built it to work. And the thing about clean code is, it outlasts the noise. The bourbon bottle still sits on the shelf above my desk, unopened. Same wax seal, same label. Willet pot. Still batch 17. It's not a memory of what I lost. It's proof I didn't break. I see it every morning when I boot up. Still sealed, still waiting. Not for revenge, just to remind me who walked out standing. Every couple weeks I get emails from old investors. Hope you're well. Let's catch up. We've been following your work. All of them pretending they didn't raise a glass the night I got cut out. I delete them without opening. No reply. No closure. The world thought I lost that night, that I was humiliated, replaced. Some guy who couldn't play the politics and got outmaneuvered, but they didn't see what happened after the lights faded. They didn't see what came next. I didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't fight for a seat at a table I built from scratch. I walked out and quietly rewrote the entire script. That's the part people never expect. They think the loudest one wins. But it's always the builder, the one who understands how the wiring works, the one who can flip the switch. I still check Iron Grid stock once a week. Not obsessively, just enough. It's doing fine. Not great, not innovative, just fine. The new team talks about modernization and vision realignment, like they didn't gut the engine just to repaint the hood. But every time I scroll their updates, I see it. The same structure, same logic tree, same foundation they swore was outdated. They're still running on my framework, my code, my system, my name stripped out, but the bones never changed. Eventually, they'll try to rebrand it. Pretend it was someone else's idea. Wrap it in enough fluff and marketing jargon that no one notices the original blueprint. But I'll know. I've got my $200 espresso machine. I've got clean air, clean code, and no one standing over my shoulder asking if something looks fundable. They can keep their red carpets and rooftop mixers. I've got builders. Actual builders. People who write code because they have to. Not because it fits a deck slide. And peace. Real peace. The kind I didn't even know I was missing until everything else got stripped away.